Hey guys, I'm prepping the night before, so let's go over our brunch menu. So just like last week, I'm going to leave the link to the recipes in the cards above the pictures, with the exception of the orange glazed muffins because those actually came out of a cookbook. So if you're wondering where I got my orange glazed muffin recipe from, I got it from this book. That's right, if you are a Gilmore Girl fan, they have a cookbook just for us. So this is where I'll be taking the muffin recipe from today. We're gonna start by prepping the main entree by going ahead and cleaning our shrimp by just deshelling and taking out the veins and guts. Once you do all that, you go ahead and scrape your scallions, onions, and tomatoes in there, and then you're gonna go ahead and run it with seasonings. So the seasonings I didn't exactly use to recipe, but if you want to go by recipe or off recipe, you can. So this is pretty much stirred up and done, and I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator for tomorrow. So I move on to my biscuits, and the one thing I'm gonna give you advice about baking is that you always do dry and wet ingredients separately, and then you bring them together. So I'm gonna go ahead and add to the butter, flour, baking powder, and a couple of little other seasonings that I add to give it the flavors that I want in my dry ingredients. And then I go ahead and start mixing it up with a fork, but I really want them to be very finely sifted, so I go ahead and use my hands as well. Then we move on to those wet ingredients by mixing the egg and the buttermilk and whisking them together. Once it's nicely whisked, you go ahead and add it to your dry ingredients. Once it's all mixed in, you go ahead and lay down a flour base. I kind of put a little too much flour, but what I end up doing is just making sure both sides of the dough are floured and then roll it up, and then I go ahead and have that ready for tomorrow. So I'm going ahead and move on to my muffins, and I make orange zest first by just bringing it across my cheese grater. I used about 3 oranges for this. Then I'm going to take that same orange and I'm going to go ahead and squeeze the juices out of it because I'm going to need that later. Now dry ingredients. 2 cups of flour, half a cup of brown sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda, and you go ahead and mix those dry ingredients together. In another bowl, you do 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/3 of a cup of orange juice and set that aside. Now in the same bowl that you did the orange zest, you're going to do 1 egg, 2/3 of a cup of sour cream, and 1/3 of olive oil, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and then you're going to go ahead and mix that together. Once that's done, you go ahead and put everything together. Sorry I don't have a visual for you guys. Saturday morning has arrived. Let's get to cooking. So I prep for my curry by cutting up onions and garlic. Then I take the biscuits out and go ahead and roll them into a ball and have them ready to go into the oven while I'm cooking my curry. You're gonna go ahead and saute the garlic and onions in vegetable oil, and then eventually you're gonna add your curry powder to that mix. Then I go ahead and dump my shrimp and scallops in there to cook for about 2 or 3 minutes. Then once that's done, I go ahead and scoop them out. Adding in my coconut milk, waiting till that is at a boil, put everything back in there, and then I just go ahead and let that cook to season. And then that is pretty much ready to go. By that time, my biscuits are all done, and I'm gonna go ahead and do my muffins. Last but not least, the candy sausage. So I went ahead and used roasted garlic chicken sausage, but you could use any type of sausage links that you like. But make sure you cut them up in bite-sized pieces. So I go ahead and start cooking that chicken sausage until I can tell that the middle parts of it are done. And then I'm gonna go ahead and dump in my maple syrup. So you can put in as much or as little maple syrup as you want. And then you can go ahead and just cook all that in there together. So muffins are done. Now the glaze. I'm going to start with confectionate sugar and then dump some OJ in it and then stir, and that's it. gaze upon the brunch feast before us. And you know your girl over here sopping it up like it's Southern living. What say you about all of this brunch?
Oh my God. Everything is amazing.
Aww.
Everything is amazing.
What say you, husband?
I'm trying to hold back my tears.
Yes.
These biscuits are hitting.
Those scallops is everything. Them grits be everything. Like, hello, people. You can have a fab brunch at home, y'all. You really can. See you next week.